Sup Shredders, my name is Logan, aka Spiderhands, and welcome to SP Reviews, where today we have ourselves a track titled Age of Dragons by MetaxSeed. And if we switch over to here, I'm not sure if it's MetaxSeed or MetaxSeed. Either way, this is a song that has been made for a video game. This is the Age of Dragons song made for the Age of Dragons game. This is created by MetaxSeed, MetaxSeed Games. I've also got lyrics here that we'll listen through at the end. But yeah, if you listen to this track and you want to go check out the game, obviously feel free to do so. But we're going to listen through this track from start to finish. I want to hear what we think. Let's go. Fantastic piano introduction here with the orchestral backing. Oh, a little sub bass kind of resonances panned there.
Feel the ice, feel the fire. The Zombie King is on his way. Death is his only desire. We gotta hope and we gotta pray.
Okay, yeah, it gives that kind of sort of fantasy kind of Games of Thrones-ish kind of vibe with like the winter and the cold and the snow and everything, and talking about like the Zombie King and all that. You know, I kind of get the game we're going for here.
Demons rise and kingdoms fade.
Really intense strings there. Nice phrasing to it. Great sense of tension and drama to it.
We can be defeated as the dead will bring the end. Where are the heroes of Dracia? If we fall tomorrow may never come. This story could end in death and fall. It's Age of Dragons where we are.
I like the story that's being told here, you know, there's this hope, this spirit, this battle cry, you know, if we fall, tomorrow may never come, you know. You get a sense of urgency from that, matches the emotional tone of those strings there. Really palatable chord progression behind that. I'm not sure if it's quite a 1-5-6-4, but it might be something similar to that. And I think that it works well for a song that you want to get stuck in people's heads. And those orchestral drums, how it's sort of, they come in sometimes, and I think that's more sort of powerful than having them constant, you know, allowing most of the rhythmic focus to be on those strings, and then the vocals as well as the pad-like backing vocals, which sound really sweet. I like the overall vocal harmonies we have there. Oh, a little bit of arpeggiation there, some broken chords being played on those strings. Great development there without the vocals. Good alternative lead voice. Yeah, we've got an interesting sort of like I don't know if that's like a brass instrument, like a bass brass instrument on the low end, along with those occasional whole note kicks. Oh no, there's a little bit more to it. It's eighths and 16ths.
We are fighting on a losing battle with no hope in sight. Enemies around us in the dark.
It's not sounding positive, is it?
Kingdom blood in every word of wisdom. It is Age of Dragons where we are.
Nice dynamic range as well, coming down to that piano line at the end. Really classy move. Ooh, it's kind of quirky and fascinating how they kind of press your eardrums a little bit with those little doof doof doofs on the side. I'm not sure if I like it. I mean, I like the cinematic sort of like way of sound design that they're trying to go for here, but it's also like, it's weird. I'm not used to having like a lack of oomph behind the pitter patters. But that crash at the end was kind of dope. I dig that. You know, nice sort of reverb tail to that. You know, sounds kind of dope, because this is the conclusion for my review of Age of Dragons by MetaxSeed. I think it's MetaxSeed if I'm not mistaken there. Well, we'll have a look at the lyrics. So I've got some lyrics here for, you know, feel the ice, feel the fire, the Zombie King is on his way. The ice and fire, Zombie King. It does remind me of certain media that's been popular not so recently, or maybe more so recently, because you've got like there's a few things going on at the moment in that fantasy genre. Demons rise and kingdoms fade. They need to fall to the blade. Yeah, no, I mean, it sounds like people are in for a terrible time. I suppose if you play this game, you're the hope of the people to kind of save them from their bitter end. If I'm not mistaken, Drashia is, I suppose, that's the country there that they're in, the land. It's interesting that we're talking about zombies when, like, it's the Age of Dragons. Are the dragons there to sort of like slay the zombies? Is that it? We need our dragons to win this fight. Yeah, there we go. So we do eventually get dragons, I think. And Dawn of Justice, Fall of Kingdom, Blood and Every Word of Wisdom. It's Age of Dragons where we are. Okay, so I get it. So like the hope is that the dragons will be able to help them get out of the situation they're in, and eventually things will improve. Because this is now the conclusion of my review of this track. This track by MetaxSeed. Titled Age of Dragons. You know, I think we've talked about what the track is about. We've established what it's about. It's about a land that is under siege from the Zombie King, and they're looking to the Age of Dragons to come out of that. So, you know, zombies versus dragons, you know, it's a classic. It sounds like a fascinating scenario to be in, and I think that the vocals, they do illustrate the story well. They told it well. I can understand how they did it, and why that would mean what it needs to the lyrics, you know. There's a patient sort of narrative tone to the way the vocals are sung there. At the same time, I think the harmonies really elevate it in the hook, and I'm glad we had those. I think it would have been a little bit less powerful if we didn't have those harmonies, you know. And there were lots of lovely sort of like octave choices there to kind of make it shimmer and shine like there was a choir behind it, so we clearly understood what we were doing there. Great phrasing of that, and it allowed, again, for those strings to just sit beside it, but not to be too much of a focal point. They wanted a distraction from the story, what was being told, and you could hear the vocals clearly in the mix. Nice use of head and chest voice there, really smooth. The motif behind it, again, I think that 1-5-6-4 progression or something similar to that. It's a common one, and I do hear it in music of this style, this sort of cinematic orchestral stuff from especially like fantasy genre and all that. So it makes sense to use it in a video game like this. It did illustrate a sense of tension or like a sadness for what was going to come, and like you know, we wanted things to improve, and I think at the end of each of the time we play through that, there is hope for a brighter future. So I think that journey of going up and down, that constant emotion, sort of oscillation with the tone of it, is a smart decision to make. I think that piano line we had at the start, you know, shows clear skill and understanding of music theory and composition to be able to get those broken chords, those 16th notes to stand well and be meaningful. And I think it was a nice contrast to those bigger sort of lower fuller chorus sections. So, you know, you had two main parts. We had the verse and then the hook, and then you had some instrumental sort of breaks and all that, and you just had it filter out with those pianos at the end. You know, I don't think you needed to say much more than you did about the story. I think we got the hang of what the song was about from the lyrics. So allowing ourselves to just hear the actual performance, the accompaniment performance of that was a really smart move, I think. You know, especially if you're like, you know, you want to get a sort of a feel as well when you hear a song for a game of what the soundtrack is going to be like, irrespective of the vocals. Like what it was going to be like when you're just playing the game, for example. Are you going to have constant vocal narration, or is it going to be just the strings and everything like that, you know? But yeah, it's good, you know. So we have dynamic range there as well, which is testament not just only to a production side of things, but also testament to the appropriateness and understanding. We're sort of making more of a sort of an audio-visual experience, I suppose, with the format that we're on. I think that we avoided a good amount of complexity with the actual individual instruments for a clear reason, and that is simply to make it fairly straightforward to understand and sort of like absorb for the average listener, you know. We didn't need the way that the music sounded to be bringing people to a point where they couldn't understand. Like, that was too much for them. I think having simple triads and those harmonies was a great idea. And I think that having sort of some moderation of those drums, or some like changes in there between those chord note grooves, or maybe some 8s and 16s later on, was a smart move just to keep it sounding fresh. The whole notes of everything else were meaningful and contrasted well again with the faster piano parts. I think at 2 minutes 23, it was as short as it needed to be to illustrate kind of what the song was about, what the game was about. And I think that anyone who listened to this without any distractions, like actively listened to it, would have gotten a hang of what you're into if you play Age of Dragons. And then finally, the production, recording, mixing, and mastering was great. You know, the tone of the track was captured well with that. I'm not sure if we recorded these instruments or if we sampled them, but either way, it was dope, man. Either way, it was sick, you know. The technology nowadays is phenomenal, and I think especially If you are trying to, especially if you're like indie game developer, you might not have the, and I'm not talking about MetaxSeed, but like if for instance you're like an indie game developer, you might not have the budget to hire an orchestra for something like that. So, you know, nothing wrong with using samples or whatever, but there was, I'm not sure what they were doing with the vocals. They sounded like there was minimal sort of modulation or effects work on that. It was nicely EQ'd and compressed. And I think that it sat well with everything else in the mix, you know, the strings, the orchestra, other orchestral parts, the drums, piano, you know, things were nicely balanced and had a nice sort of reverb chain or whooshiness to them. There was a little bit of extra oomph to those like the cymbals, the crash cymbals that they had, all the gongs. They just kept going, and I liked the space they filled without needing to have anything else added to it. And you know, finally, I suppose it was nice and wide in the stereo field. Again, those little pitter-patters, that little bits of Foley and sound design they had there with those little lower sort of percussive hits occasionally as we went through it. Again, I seemed a little bit perturbed by it, but that doesn't necessarily mean I think it's a bad decision. I think it's kind of dope that they can do that. It just wasn't something I was expecting, and that's a pleasant surprise because I've done like 1,000 of these reviews at this point. It's always nice to hear something I haven't heard before, or that I don't hear often, and they managed to accomplish that, you know. So testament to the studio production team for that work there. And it was nice and loud without pumping. Again, there was dynamic range, changes in the perceived loudness, and the transitions between those were very smooth. So all in all, I think this is a dope track for a game soundtrack and an introduction to what they do, and I wish them the best of luck, because this is effectively my review of this track by MetaxSeed for their game Age of Dragons. The song is titled Age of Dragons. Hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did, please do go show them some love via their various social medias and their website, YouTube page, and stay cool, stay safe, and please remember to support your local musicians and artists at this point in time, as they need the help more than ever with all the crazy stuff going on in the world. And I'll catch you in the next review. Spiderhands Out.